well, I have 8 o'clock on the nose. So with that being said, I know some people like to make sure that they get done not too late. So we are going to have, Les, are you ready to go?
Sure, we can get started. So I mentioned when I joined the Miami Valley Study Group meeting on Sunday that I thought we might have a descendant, not a descendant, a relative of Henry Helmers join the group today, but so far I'm not seeing Joe Helmers. I think he'd be a great, great nephew of Henry Helmers. So we'll go ahead, we'll see if they join here in a while. But Heatherbloom, it's a beautiful color, and we'll be seeing some beautiful glass, is another one of the colors that the formula was developed by Henry Helmers during a short period of time when he was at the Cambridge Glass Factory. It was only 1930 to 1932. But during that period of time, he developed the colors for Carmine, Royal Blue, Amethyst, Forest Green, Crown Tuscan, and Heatherbloom. Pretty spectacular, huh? Those would be four of the premium colors among collectors. I was back and reading the batch book, the text part at the beginning, and he pointed out he also revised Willow Blue while he was there. And that kind of is fitting some discussions we've had here about the light blue colors, that was Moonlight really a new distinct color, or was it that in the later years of Willow Blue, it had already been revised and then became Moonlight for marketing purposes? So we don't know on that. But because of this connection with John Helmers, the grand nephew of Henry, I reconnected with Bill Corder. Bill Corder put together the batch book of Henry Helmers and spent quite a bit of time with Henry and Mary Helmers in their home. And a thing that was unique about Henry, and maybe why he was capable of developing these unique colors, is he was so different than the other glass masters at these glass houses, because they kind of learned by trial and error, whereas Henry was graduated from the University of Michigan as a chemical engineer. And he went on and had a distinguished career at many of the major glass houses in the country, and had a stint with the US government as well during World War II. So it's probably one of the reasons that Henry had a profound effect at the Cambridge Glass Factory. And it's probably one of the key reasons that he jumped on the making of this lavender glass that us Cambridge collectors call Heatherbloom, or the Cambridge company called Heatherbloom. The element is that it's the prime colorant is neodymium. It's a rare earth element. It's actually not that rare on the earth, but it's not found in pure form. So it has to be, processed in order to get it in a pure form to use for the manufacture of glass. So it was really wasn't uncovered until about 1925 and first used to make glass in 1927. So it was new then, and Cambridge introduced Heatherbloom in 1931. In fact, in Henry's batch book, he's got a notation on one formula: May 1st, 1931, first large pot of Heatherbloom, and a little light, it says. And there's two other formulas for Heatherbloom, one that was dark, and then another one, which is probably the key formula, and it's the one that I'll be referring to from here on forward. So again, I think it's, looking at these alternative formulas that Henry has in his batch, and then another batch book that we have, all the alternative formulas for a single color, that there wasn't just one recipe that was used for these colors. So this neodymium was expensive. It's still expensive because today, most of it comes from China. Most of it, there's a lot of it in Greenland, but they don't want to mine. They want to keep their pristine environment. So most of it's coming from China. And today it's used for very high power magnets. And so it's got a large commercial use there. and that keeps the price relatively high. And because it's got to be processed to be made from other compounds, that does drive up the cost somewhat. It's called diachromatic, and I think most of you know that it depends on when you look at it, the thickness of glass, but also if you're looking at it under fluorescent light or sunlight versus daylight and incandescent versus fluorescent lighting. It can be either like lavender or else it could look like a pale blue. So it depends on the lighting and a bit on the thickness of glass as far as what the color actually looks like. But generally speaking, it is a lavender color. Now, there's other glass houses jumped on this color too. Henry Helmers flat out takes credit for making alexandrite. He did contract work for Heisey. So alexandrite was made using neodymium, and Helmers claims credit for developing that formula for Heisey. There's also Wisteria at Fostoria and Twilight at Tiffin, and they're all from that early 1930s period. It seems like they still use it today to make glass. I think Moss's still using it today in Cambridge, actually, but it is relatively expensive. Probably $50 a pound or something like that, even today. And of course, that would have been prohibitive if that was the price back in those days. But it is a hazard to use. It's very combustible. So it may well have been in those factories. Cambridge, we think they were done with it in about 1935, so about a 4-year run, that it was very combustible. I'm sure those factory owners were concerned about fires, in those glass houses. And then the other thing, it's not like poisonous so much if you ingest it, but if you inhale it, it's hazardous for human health. It has an impact on the lungs and the liver. So I don't know why it was a fairly short run color at Cambridge, because we certainly like the color a great deal. Now, the nudes were also introduced in 1931, and it turns out that Cambridge made nudes right at the very beginning in crystal, Heatherbloom, gold crystal, and forest green. And so they kind of picked out their premium colors. So I'll show right away this piece. I don't know if it's going to show well here. The etching, it is apple blossom. There we go. It's showing now. And, a thing about the Heatherbloom that always made me nervous is you can get a lavender from Sun Color. And that makes me nervous. And especially when I was collecting early, I said, oh, do I dare buy that? Because I don't know, it might just be a Sun Color. So you have to be careful on that. It makes it somewhat easier if a part of it is crystal. But, if you go to the malls in Phoenix, that's my second home, and I love Phoenix, and boy, they'll set crystal glass up on the rooftops and Sun Color it. And you can go to glass shows and the whole booth is Sun Color glass. So it's easier on a piece like this when you've got the crystal stem. I guess you could wrap the crystal stem if you wanted to put it up on your roof and be clever. But at any rate, with the nudes, very early on, they were etched just Apple Blossom and Gloria. So these etched nudes are from very early in the period the nudes were made. And they did make them etched Apple Blossom and Gloria. I got another piece here I'll show. And I actually got this with my nudes and Heatherbloom. I don't have much Heatherbloom in my collection. And this one is etched Gloria, kind of a cute little piece. So I think it's very pretty class. It's popular, I think, among collectors. It's hard to collect it heavily because there just isn't that much of it out there. Now, as far as the formula to make it, right in Helmer's batch book, he's got alexandrite, and he claims credit for it. And he did contract work with them as well as working full-time at Cambridge. And the formulas with a base of 1,000 pounds of sand are pretty similar for the the traditional ingredients. A difference with Heatherbloom is that there's 7.5 pounds of arsenic versus only 2.5 in alexandrite. And arsenic helps take the green color out of iron in sands. Well, you don't want any green in Heatherbloom, definitely. So there's 3 times as much. Arsenic also helps eliminate bubbles, but why so much more arsenic? Well, probably one reason is there wasn't near as much neodymium in Heatherbloom by Cambridge as there was in alexandrite by Heisey. In fact, there was 20 pounds per 1,000 pounds of sand in Heatherbloom of the neodymium, the expensive ingredient. There was 4.5 times as much in alexandrite. So alexandrite really leaned on the neodymium for the color, whereas Heatherbloom, they upped the arsenic to counter green. They also added 1.5 pounds of selenium, which imparts a pink color, and 2.5 ounces of powder blue, which is heavily diluted cobalt oxide. Cobalt oxide is ungodly powerful as a colorant in glass. So just 2.5 ounces of diluted cobalt blue was added. So I guess, I don't want to pick on Cambridge, but it appears that Cambridge was kind of poor man's neodymium glass compared to alexandrite. So just a difference in that difference in the formula that way, but it's still a beautiful color, and the neodymium aspect still comes through on both. And maybe somebody will show us a piece of alexandrite during the presentation here. That would be wonderful. So that's my background information. Julie, if anybody has any questions, it's okay. Otherwise, let's move on and see some class.
Yeah, okay.
Sorry.
Okay, thank you, Les. I appreciate that.
Can I ask a question, Julie, if you don't mind,
Yes,
please?
absolutely.
Yeah, and I made a miss. You might have said something, Les, but the 2 different formulas of Heatherbloom. One, because we always joke that sometimes if you see it under incandescent light, or if maybe it's the fluorescent, whichever one, like for Pritchard Laughlin in a show, it'll look like it's moonlight. The one formula and then the other formula looks more like Heatherbloom. It doesn't change to that in the certain lighting conditions. Did you talk about that? Did I miss that?
Well, there was the original one was May 1, 1932, and you just said first batch, first large pot. There was that darker color was earlier yet, and that was a small pot. They were playing around. He was developing the color. And then May 1st in 1931, this first batch or first large pot of Heatherbloom. But then in 1932, this is Heatherbloom. I mean, it's clearly labeled as Heatherbloom. So, that would suggest, there were 2 formulas that were used. One earlier.
You know which one was the one that turns light blue in a certain
No,
color?
I wouldn't know that.
We didn't know. Okay, I didn't know if that was.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, thanks.
Yeah, he didn't have the powder blue in that first formula. He added the powder blue later to add a little more blue to it. So maybe that fits in with what you're saying.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
And Les, what was the other, you said it was 2.5 ounces of the powder blue. And what was the other chemical that was in there?
Selenium.
Oh, selenium. And that was 1.5?
1.5 pounds.
Yeah, okay.
In 1,000 pounds of sand.
Yes.
So selenium adds pink. And of course, we talked earlier about Carmen. They discovered that to make carbon, so you didn't have to use gold or something like that. If they had selenium, if you just put a lot more and more selenium in, it just turns into mud, a color. To get the red, they had to put the cadmium sulfide in there, which normally it gives you yellow. Right. And then they had to reheat it. And I'm tending to wonder now, because I see like with the color Rubina, there's really talk about refiring, like going back in the glory hole. And now I'm starting to wonder if when the books all say that selenium ruby has to be reheated, it might just be reheating. to get to bring out that color. I just don't know.
Mhm.
But I did have a visit with Russ Vogelsong at summer art class. He said, yeah, you got to reheat that selenium ruby to get the color to come out. But I don't know if there was a flat out refiring or not.
Hmm.
A lot we don't know.
Interesting. Well, thank you so much. Are there any other questions for Les before we move on?
I have a question, and I don't know if there's really an answer, but I was just curious, is there any way to tell if something is colored? Is there any hints that you would have? Because I feel the same way. I'm always nervous about Heatherbloom. That's why I don't own any pieces of it, because of that reason.
Yeah, I'm with you, Chris. I'm always just really gun shy because some of this sun colored, and of course now they're radiating it as well. And it's pretty, it's a nice purple, some of that radiated glass. So if it's a Cambridge blank, if there's a crystal element, a foot or a stem, then I'm pretty comfortable, but I'm as gun shy as you are. So I don't know if there's anybody else in the group that's got a tried and true method of distinguishing the two. I do not. I'm as nervous as you are.
Well, that's a good question. We'll have to see if we should pose that at Cambridge someday, if anybody has a tried or true method. So with that, we are going to move on to the people I've heard responses from, and we're going to mix it up, and we're going to start with Mark Voss tonight. Or Greg Voss, I'm sorry. Greg, I thought I saw you.
Hey, I'm here.
Okay.
Okay. First item I have, I guess maybe this is something from that first batch. It's a Rosalie stem. And to me, this stem, I know Rosalie is an earlier etch that I guess started in the late 20s. So maybe this was in one of those first batches they ran, because it was around, I guess, when they first started Heatherbloom. But it looks a little different from my other pieces of Heatherbloom. It looks a little pinker. So maybe this was before the pinch and blue got added. But I just noticed that this always looks a little bit pinker than the other stems I have. And I also have a Mount Vernon vase. And I like 3126 stems, and I just got an example of that in Portia. And finally, one of my favorite stems is 1066 Heatherbloom in Diane.
Beautiful.
That's it.
Well, thank you, Mark. It's nice to see the different patterns on the glass. Again, I think it's interesting that you had an early piece that looked very pinkish versus your later pieces like Mount Vernon really had a more purpley hue, but that could also be the thickness of the glass.
Yeah.
Okay, so next we will have Mike Strebler, and then on deck we'll have Winnell. Mike? Mike, are you back?
Yes.
Okay. Oh, you're muted. Oh, there you go.
Okay. I did have the Heatherbloom banquet. Everyone that I've seen, unless you can opine on this also, is an optic stem. I don't know. Do you have any non?
Yeah, I think they're all optic. Good point. Of the new.
And I've never really had a problem. We talked about sun, but sun always looks kind of grayish to me. Heatherbloom's always got a nice pinkish color there. Actually, that's Lisa showing up in the glass there, I think. But I'll make a comment on collecting Heatherbloom. And many, many years ago, when glass was just starting to come out, there was one collector that bought it all up. So that to buy Heatherbloom was very pricey and hard to do. I've seen it around a lot more lately. But the other way you can tell is you only see it in certain patterns. The one Greg had, that stem, I see 3400, and there's some others, but it's not real common in a lot of different blanks. So that's my 2 cents on it.
Yeah, as far as pressed ware, it's almost completely Mount Vernon and Martha Washington. Just almost completely those two pressed. Otherwise, it's almost all blown drinking vessels.
Okay, thank you for those observations. It's always good to learn these things, especially if we do have concerns of, sunglass versus something that we think is Cambridge. So it's always good. The more information I feel is the better for me as a collector. So I appreciate your insights. So next we have Gwinnell, and then after that we will have Jack and Elaine.
All right, I have the 3400 cream and sugar.
Can you rate?
Here's
There
the
you go.
Sugar. That better. And the sugar. Which is about the only thing I have in Cambridge, but then I have the Tiffin in their Puritan Modern. And it does change colors, as you were talking about. It goes kind of a real pale turquoise to the nice lavender color.
That'd be their twilight color, right?
Twilight, yes. It's very heavy. I also have the Canterbury, which I'm not sure if Duncan did this one or if Tiffin did it. It does not change colors like the Puritan does. And then in the Fostoria, got the Wisteria. And it changes colors as well. In the Mayfair. And that's about it for the lavender, Heatherbloom, light colors.
Well, thank you. It's nice to see the comparison in the colors. Maybe before the end, if you could line them all up so we could see them side by side, it would be interesting just to see the color difference. If you've got room there, well.
I may move the camera a little bit to do it, so see what I can do.
Okay. All right. In the meantime, we're going to move on to Jack and Elaine, and then we're going to put the checks on deck.
Okay, let me see if I can, let's move this. Maybe get that, let's see if that shows up. We have 2 pieces of Heatherbloom, and this really, I think, shows the 2 different colorations too as well. Greg Bass showed he had a 30-35 stem, and that's what this is. It's a 30-35 12-ounce footed tumbler, and it's etched 731 or Rosalie as well, and this is gold encrusted. And this seems like when you see the 30-35 line, it must have been exude that pinkish hue to it, much different, a little darker coloration in that. So it seemed like it was pretty consistent with that line. The piece that's next to it, this is the number 1233 9.5-inch keyhole vase. This is etched Elaine, and it almost looks like it is moonlight. You have to get it in the right light. In fact, there's a funny story about this. Lynn Welker, who found this for us, was digging around in somebody's basement a long time ago, years ago, and there was a box of Cambridge in there, and he grabbed it and he looked at it and he thought it was Moonlight Diane. Got it back to the shop and he goes, holy, it's Heatherbloom Elaine. I got to call Jack and Elaine. So that was kind of a funny story. So, and it does look like moonlight in certain situations, but when you get it in a natural light, it is definitely Heatherbloom. So anyway, that's what I got.
Thank you. And it's interesting to see the gold encrusted. That was going to be one of my other questions, if it ever had any silver overlay or gold encrusted or anything like that. I would have guessed gold encrusted over silver overlay though. So thank you for sharing those with us, and also your comments about the 3035 or 3035 stem. So next we are going to the checks, and we're going to put Larry Everett on deck, please. Mary and Jeff, are you there?
She's on mute.
Oh, she's on mute.
Okay, I thought I had unmuted it. So it's the Mount Vernon candlestick. I said this now, different light, it looks definitely more pink, but it never looks blue like the other.
That's gorgeous.
It sparkles. That's the one thing I love about this, is that the little points there, they just sparkle in the sunlight. So that's it. That's the only piece we have.
Okay, thank you for sharing. And I will have some photos coming up from Freeman and Jeannie, and you'll have another opportunity to see the Mount Vernon line. As you know, they enjoy the Mount Vernon line, so I'll have several pieces to show in a photo coming up from them.
Good.
So thank you so much for sharing with us, as always.
Oh, sure.
So next we have Larry, and then we will put Alan on deck, please.
Okay, continuing in the Mount Vernon trend, this is a square puff box, 4 inches square. Then we have the largest piece of the evening. This is a 3400 nut cup in Gloria.
Oh, wow.
I just love those little nut cups anyway. Then I didn't want to get the whole dinner set out tonight, but this is a 3400 salad in Gloria. I really like the Gloria etching. I like the other etchings as well, but Gloria shows up really nicely on Heatherbloom. A tall 3129 compote in apple blossom. It has the keyhole stem. Then we have low sherbet in Gloria. That's a 3122 stem. And you're right, I didn't notice this before, but comparing the Rosalie next to the Gloria, the Rosalie is a little bit darker. So that was our learning bonus for the night, I guess. A footed Diane cigarette box. Then I guess I have one more little piece, which is a 1228 pillow vase in Heatherbloom. I've never seen one before like it. I didn't know if I was going to be able to find it for tonight or not, but lo and behold, there it was. That's it.
No etching though, right?
I had to scrub like heck to get the Gloria off of there.
Yeah, I figured. I just was checking though. I know sometimes you come up with some really nice stuff, Larry. So I just want to make sure you weren't holding back on us.
No.
Okay, thank you. That was a really spectacular piece. So the pillow vase is absolutely one of my most favorite shapes of all of the things in Cambridge. I don't know why, I just am drawn to it all the time. Okay, so next we have Alan on deck, and I do not have anyone else that has sent me an email to say they've got glass to show. So is there anyone else that will have glass to show after Alan? Then, okay, so after Alan, we're going to go back to, who said that?
Gwinnell?
Oh, yeah, we're going to come back to you before we go to the photos.
Okay.
So perfect. Thank you, Gwinnell. All right, so next up, Alan.
And I'm sorry I didn't bring my Heatherbloom pillow vase because it's etched apple blossom, but it's in the basement in the back of a showcase and I didn't want to move everything else around it. Sorry. Anyhow, to start off with, I have a little 13-14 3-inch high ashtray that's with a 1066 stem, and it's etched E752 Diane. The stem and the foot are crystal, and it's the ashtray itself that's Heatherbloom. And I too am very leery about buying Heatherbloom. The first piece I ever bought was a ball jug, and I had to ask 3 longtime members whether it was sun-dyed or it truly was Heatherbloom. It wasn't etched, unfortunately. Next is a 1066 9-ounce footed and stem tumbler. It's 6 1/4 inches tall, and it's Heatherbloom etched, again, Diane. Now, interesting in doing research about these things, I discovered, and I knew this a long time ago, that it's called, the 1066 is the Aurora line. But now we have a new color that's Aurora, according to the Miami Valley Study Group. And I just found that out actually yesterday, which is not to be confused with the 1920s Aurora color. So you learn something new every day when you're trying to study Cambridge glass. This one I'm confused about. It's a 3126, supposedly 5-ounce footed tumbler. It's 5 1/8 inches tall, supposedly. However, when I measured this one, it's actually only 4 1/2 inches tall. So the confusion is this truly a footed tumbler, or is it an oyster cocktail? Since I don't eat oysters, I have no idea what an oyster cocktail truly looks like. And this is etched Portia. The bowl is Heatherbloom, and the stem and the foot is crystal. Anybody have an idea?
But generally, if there's a stem, they're not considered tumblers, I don't think.
Well, yeah, according to the Miami website and the listing of 3126, that is a supposedly a 5-ounce footed tumbler. Yeah, so I'm not sure.
Larry, do you know something on that? I thought the footed tumblers didn't have a stem.
It
It has a
depends on,
short stem.
yeah, it depends on the line. Some of them do have a short stem.
Yeah. And this only holds 4 ounces, by the way.
Yeah.
4 ounces. I measured it 3 times with my measuring cup. Somehow I've lost you.
Looking at it, it looks more like an oyster cocktail to me.
It does. Okay, that's good to know. Can you tell by the shape?
If you take your hand off the stem,
Okay, hold on. I'm holding 2 pieces.
yeah, don't drop anything.
Trying not to.
Hold it up a little higher. There we go. I'm sure that's an oyster cocktail.
Okay, thank you. That's good to know. Next, I have the 3429 7-inch high footed compo with the number 13 fancy stem. When I originally got this, I thought maybe it was an anomaly or a damage or a second, but in doing research again through the Miami Valley website, it's called a fancy stem. Why? I don't know. The stem is crystal, the foot is crystal, the bowl is Heatherbloom, and it is etched Gloria. I don't know if you can see the etching. Next, I have 2 candlesticks. One is Heatherbloom keyhole, 646, again etched Gloria on the base. The entire keyhole and the foot are Heatherbloom, as well as the top part of it. I almost thought at first maybe it was sun-dyed, but they do have it listed in the catalog. And then I also have another keyhole, same thing. except this is my only gold encrusted Heatherbloom piece. And it's gold encrusted. Let me see if I can get this up a little higher. Portia. Then last but not least, I have most of the nude stems in Heatherbloom, except Cocktail. And I'm not sure if they made it a Cocktail in Heatherbloom. I do have the banquet goblet. I have the tables and the champagnes and other clarets. And this one is etched Apple Blossom. The figure and the base are both crystal, and it's the bowl that's Heatherbloom. And that's it for us.
Yeah, they didn't make the cocktail, nude cocktail in Heatherbloom, despite the fact the 1931 or the 1930s catalog has it labeled as a cocktail. When they first introduced the nudes, they were calling the claret a cocktail.
Okay.
So that's why, and Mark had that incorrect in the stemware book. I mean, well, how would he know that when he put that book together? So the nudes in Heatherbloom were made obviously for a very short period of time before they introduced the cocktail, and when they were calling the claret the cocktail. Also, so what we've seen 5 etchings: Gloria, Apple Blossom, Rosalie, Portia, and Diane. Does anybody have any other than those 5 etchings?
You forgot about Elaine.
Oh, yeah. We saw Elaine tonight. Fantastic.
And that, by the way, that is the only piece that we know of.
Yeah. Any others? It's pretty limited. And then the pressed ware almost completely Mount Vernon and Martha Washington.
Do we have anything else, Rich?
Well, those were beautiful pieces, Alan, and thank you so much for sharing them. And sometime I'd like to see the pillow vase, since it is my favorite, one of my favorite pieces. So
I'll try and dig it out for you.
bring it to show and tell at convention. I'd love to see it.
Okay.
But thank you so much for sharing that. And again, I really enjoy seeing the pieces. I think it really accentuates the color when we start seeing them gold encrusted and so forth. And do you know what portion less, or were there any particular patterns that were gold encrusted? Like I've seen Portia, but I don't believe we saw anything in Diane or Rosalie. Well, what was the other piece that we saw that was gold encrusted? That was Rosalie, I believe.
Rosalie, yeah.
There's just very little with gold decoration. I don't know anything with anything like silver or enamel or anything like that on Heatherbloom. So I think it's mostly Portia, what we've seen that is surfaced, that's got some gold trim or gold encrusting on it.
Okay, thank you so much for that. So now we're going to go back to Gwinnell, since she's been kind enough to set up a little display for us so we can see the differences in the color.
This is the Twilight, the Fostoria, and then Cambridge and the Apple Blossom. Not the Twilight, I'm sorry, Wisteria and Fostoria, and then Twilight and the Viking. And Cambridge is definitely very pink.
Red Violet.
What's that?
Red Violet.
Red Violet? A good description. Can you see those?
Yes, thank you. That really is very nice to see them side by side.
It's almost too bad we don't have Alexandrite too.
That's on the wish list.
Yeah.
Well, we'll just have to work on that, Gwinnell.
Yes, that's in my plans.
Okay. Is there anyone else that has any Heatherbloom to show this evening? I know a couple people joined late. Anybody? Okay, hearing none, I'm going to share my screen. Thank you for having those close by. So here, unfortunately, I don't have the first picture up. Let me just go back to that for a minute. There we go. So this was sent by Freeman and Jeannie Moore, as most of you know, as they enjoy the Mount Vernon line. And here we can see several pieces, the decanter in the back, and they actually have a list, looks like a footed meat, several vases, comports. I really enjoy this really nice bowl here in the middle. A 3-part, and it looks like the entire set of the dinner, also the salad, the bread and butter, down to the cup and saucer here. This was probably, I'm not sure if they called that the beer mug. I always look at it as the beer mug. But certainly we've got the 4-part, and then it looks like a sugar and creamer here. The next photo, they're kind enough to kind of give us the description here of the decanters and the vases, bowl, comports, footed tumbler. I did miss the footed tumblers, my apology. The sherbet, the fruit saucer, and then the stein. Then they also sent to us the other part of this, which was the 37 plates, the covered candy, the sweet meat, the sugar and creamer. There is the relish, the number 40 dinner plate, the number 5 salad plate, the number 19 bread and butter plate, and the number 7 cup and saucer. The next photo.
I didn't see it.
I'm not seeing the photos.
Oh, you're not seeing the photos? I wonder why they're not showing here. Let me see if I can stop sharing. I'll try to reshare. Oh, I think I have to, so there we go. Do we see it now?
Yes.
Okay, sorry. We'll go back and look at the other photos again. My apologies. I have to double share for some reason. The candlestick that we saw previously, the number 35 candlestick, there is an apple blossom ball jug, the number 9 1-pound candy, the number 43 bowl, the number 79 12-inch celery, and the number 44 bowl. Obviously, most of these are in Mount Vernon. Just a second, I have to kind of move my people around here so I can get to the next photo. Here was the original photo of the items that I had described previously. So we'll take a look at these
don't
as they
see it.
are. Pardon me?
I don't.
You
see
haven't
the
changed
photo.
photos yet, Julie.
Really? What is this going on here? Well, this is a new one for me, so we'll have to figure out why it's not sharing. Does this photo come up? No?
No.
Okay, let me get rid of the other photo. Let me share screen again. I think I'm gonna have to get out and then reshare every single time, so my apologies.
Yeah,
So here is, do we see this now?
yes.
Yeah, we
Okay.
saw that one. Mhm.
Okay, you have seen this one?
Yes.
Okay. So this has the decanters, the vases. Is that what you're seeing?
We saw it.
Okay, I just want to make sure. Do you see the 37 plate and the 9-pound?
No, you haven't changed
No.
pictures at all.
Hasn't
For
changed.
some reason, it's not letting me do what I want to do here. So let me get rid of that one.
Do you not have them in like a file folder where you
No,
can just
they're
scroll?
they're in a file folder, and for some reason, they're not letting me share how I normally share these pieces. So if we should not have seen this one yet with the descriptions. With the plates, do you see this now with the dinner plate, the salad plate, the bread and butter? Okay, I see nods, so that's good. And then back,
Your sugar.
we can see the sweet meat, and then the 3-part, and the relish, and then the sugar and creamer. So let me get rid of this picture.
Heatherbloom.
For some reason, I don't know why, it's having one of these quirks. It updated today, and I think maybe that could be part of it. the Zoom part updated. So do we see the full place setting now of this without the labels?
Yes.
Okay. So here, I don't think I mentioned, here is the stein with my pointer maybe, and then the vases, and then the comports, and then the decanter that we often see in Mount Vernon. And here looks like a serving plate. And then I've never seen one of these bowls before, these large serving bowls. I find that very interesting, along with, I have seen the footed goblets before. So those are the photos that were sent by the Moores. So I appreciate what they were able to share with us. Okay, so now we should be back. You should see me again. And does anyone have any other glassware to share this evening? No, so I think it's gonna,
I
yes,
actually have some glass to share.
wonderful, Tony.
I'm sorry, I'm so Zoom illiterate. I'm sitting here trying to figure out how to send you a message and I can't. I'm like, no, I've got a bunch of stuff sitting here. So, hi, I'm Tony, live in California, collected Heatherbloom for probably 20 years and just gathered a few pieces to show you. I missed a bunch of stuff, so I'm not sure what got shown already, but got a few pieces. Here's, I'm not sure if you could see it very well, but it's a ball jug.
Very pretty.
I can fix the video real quick. Here we go. Here's a 80-ounce ball jug, no etching on it. I started collecting just Heatherbloom apple blossom and wasn't finding a lot of it. So I started mixing in unetched pieces just so I could have more to display. Here's a new one I just got. It's the 6-ounce 3400 oil cruet with the crystal stopper. And here's the 3400 marmalade with a notched lid. I have never seen them with a spoon in the original catalogs, but it bothered me that this didn't have it. So I found a little antique crystal spoon to go inside and display with it. Looks pretty good with it. And here are a pair of shakers with glass tops. These are the 3477 shakers. Heatherbloom body with the crystal glass tops. And here is another different style shakers. These ones have the chrome tops, but Heatherbloom, I think they're the, let's see. These are the 3437 shakers with the chrome tops. And here's one of my larger pieces. This is the 1238 12-inch vase with the crystal keyhole stem, one of my favorite pieces. But had lots to show, but these are my favorite pieces. Hope you guys like them.
Oh, yes, thank you. And we're glad you figured out how to say, I've got glass to show. It's always good. So,
yeah,
those,
me too.
Yes, that little oil cruet is adorable.
Oh, thank you.
Yes, I really like that. And it's nice to see the variety of the glassware that's been shown tonight. So as you have some of the more, salt and peppers that we don't often see. And I like that you found the little spoon for the marmalade. That's adorable.
Oh, thank you.
Tony, can I ask a question on your marmalade? Does
Sure.
it set pretty much straight up and down, or is it cocked to one side?
It is tilted, kind of like the rest of the tilt ball line. Let me see if I can show you better in the picture. Yeah, it's
Right. Okay.
it's tilted with the notch right here.
Thank you.
Uh-huh.
We're finding out there's like 3 different marmalades, and one is kind of straight up, and one's like yours, and then one's about halfway in between. Thanks for
Oh,
showing.
okay.
us.
I only thought there were 2. It's interesting that there's 3.
We just found a third one.
Oh, cool.
All right, does anyone else have any questions for Tony or any of the glassware that's been shown this evening, of anyone that's shown any glass tonight?
Julie,
I don't have any glass to share, but someone asked earlier about how to tell if it's sun colored or it's Heatherbloom. When you do take a piece of Heatherbloom from like incandescent lighting to natural lighting, it does tend to change color, where sun colored or sun purpled glass does not do that. So that's one way. And another way is just knowing what blanks Cambridge produced Heatherbloom in can also be helpful. So if you see a piece of Caprice or some other pattern that we know Cambridge did not likely produce Heatherbloom, those are items you want to be a little bit wary about.
Do we know anything about if we put black light on Heatherbloom? Is there any noticeable difference?
There's no uranium in it, so there shouldn't be. I don't think.
if it uses coma light,
It doesn't do anything to, black light does not change it at all. I've tried.
Okay, just wondered if anyone had done that. I figured someone had, but I was going to ask.
I've got a kind of a left field question on that related to lighting. Talking about incandescent lighting and the natural lighting outside. Has anybody taken a look at some of the Heatherbloom under the LED, what they call their daylight color? I think it's like a 5,000 degree light that's very, very white. We've got some in some of our fixtures. And I wonder if there's any difference under that type of LED lighting versus the incandescent and the outside.
Well, all I can tell you is they installed those lights in the museum, and the Heatherbloom color definitely popped a lot more than it did under the previous lights that they had in the museum. You can definitely see a difference. The Heatherbloom is much, much nicer in the museum than it was before.
And for those of you that aren't on Facebook, I have noticed that the museum has been posting as they're cleaning their glassware cases that you will start to see some of the glassware pop up. So we'll make sure that Cindy knows to put the Heatherbloom case on so we can see what it looks like under the light. So that would be, I'll send her a note or I'll speak with her this week. So with that being said, David, first, I want to make one comment before David comes on and mentions what we're going to be doing for the next several months. First, we need to wish a very happy birthday to someone who is online tonight. Clyde, we understand, has just turned 97. So I think we need to wish Clyde a very, very happy birthday, Clyde. That is wonderful.
Yeah, happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
Yes, absolutely. So we are glad that you're joining us, and we hope to see you every single month. Obviously, it's wonderful to see you.
he just got out of the hospital.
You just got out of the hospital. Well, we're glad that you joined us. Absolutely. So now we're going to move on. David, can you tell
Julie?
us? Yes.
I think we're doing good on time. So would it be okay if I gave updates on a couple members?
Yes, please
Yeah.
do.
So, we haven't been able to be together at convention for a couple of years, and I am just dying for those of you that are able to attend convention this June to get back together. I'm going to be back there as a dealer, and I can't wait to interact with people. So I like the glass, but I really like the people. And I'm glad that we can all get together once a month to do this. But I did talk to two members this past week that many of you would know. Diane Gary was the convention chair for a number of years, and I personally think she did a spectacular job. She was led that 40th anniversary convention we had. Diana had some setbacks and it was weak and needed to go into assisted living, and she still is using a walker. So she won't be at auction, but she's sure anxious to be back for convention this June. So it would be great if Diane Gary, but she's as enthusiastic as ever and sure fun to visit with. And we talked for over an hour. And then yesterday, I had a delightful conversation with Helen Wilt. And if some of you remember John and Helen Wilt, if you attended convention, John passed away a few years ago. Helen turned 103 in November. And she's sharp as a tack and enthusiastic, and she's going to try and get her daughter Shirley to get her hooked up to join these meetings in the future. She can't see the glass. If those of you remember Helen, she's legally blind, but she'd sure love to hear the conversation that we have. So I just thought some would be interesting. It's two of my dear friends from Cambridge class, like all of you. So thank you, Julie.
Well, thank you for that update. And I think if, if anyone else has any updates, it's always good for us to hear about these things because, all of our members, we've known each other for so long and we've collected and we miss seeing one another. And I know that not everyone came to auction. So just update us so we know what's happening and we can wish people like Clyde a happy birthday and obviously Helen Wilt a happy birthday. And obviously there's something to be said about collecting Cambridge glass. It allows longevity. So we need to collect more Cambridge glass so we can live a lot longer. I've obviously learned that now from this particular webinar. So David, if you want to take it away, please, for the next several months.
All right, thank you, Julie. And first of all, thank you to everyone that joined this evening. Of course, thank you to Les. He always adds so much insight that I think for me personally is always interesting because that's one of the parts of my knowledge bank that is rather weak is how the glass was produced and the history of the glass is not as good as it should be. So thank you again for everyone that's joining and helped make this Zoom call and all the other Zoom calls a lot of fun. Next month, we do have a color. It's in honor of the snow this time of year. We're going to do Opal, Carrera, and Milk. We're going to combine all three of those white colors together. So if you have any Milk glass, Carrera, or Opal in your collections, please dig those out and be ready to share those in February. The March auction is just 2 days after the scheduled Zoom and Tell date. So a lot of people will likely be traveling on Thursday and Friday to the auction. So we are not going to have a Zoom and Tell in March, but we will pick back up again in April with Helio and Violet, two colors that very much look the same, but were produced many years apart. So that'll be a fun program in April. And then in May, we're going to do Rubina and Sunset. So two very popular colors. And as Julie mentioned, Cindy and her team are cleaning the cases in Cambridge. And Rubina was one of the cases they cleaned earlier this week, and it looks great. And so if you haven't checked out Facebook lately, Cindy's got a lot of nice photographs up there of the progress that they're making. So Julie, that's all I've got. So we're looking forward to Milk, Carrera, and Opal next month.
Okay, thank you. And thank you for everyone again attending and everyone that presents glass. It's so much appreciated to really see the beautiful items that are out there. I enjoy it because it's kind of like I get to come inside your home and see the beautiful glass that you have, but I know many of you don't bring the glass when we have show and tell because we don't want to damage our glass. So it's always nice that we can have these kind of meetings together. And again, part of Cambridge is really the communion that surrounds its members. And I think that's one of the things that we had all kind of taken for granted for a little while. But now that we've kind of been a wave and not been able to join in and having the conventions and having, well, we did get together for the auction, but it's just nice to see everyone. It truly, truly is. So thank you again for attending. I appreciate seeing everyone so much. And we look forward to seeing you next month. So stay tuned and start digging in those cabinets for Opal, Carrera, and Milk. And again, I want to say one more time to Clyde, happy birthday. So enjoy your day, and we look forward to seeing everyone next month. Good night, everyone.